Hello, I'm Jeremy, and welcome to another episode of RevUs Reviews, where mistreated movies get a second chance. Today, we'll be reviewing an awesome comedy movie from an awesome comedy group. A little film called Kids in the Hall, Brain Candy. Kids in the Hall is one of my favorite comedy groups of all time. The surreal comedy, charisma of its members, fantastic comedic timing, and infectious and enjoyable enthusiasm combine to make Kids in the Hall one of the best comedy groups to ever exist. But while their eponymous 90s sketch show is well remembered, and its 2022 Amazon Prime reboot is commonly agreed to be a perfect example of how to reboot a comedy series, their feature film is another story. See, in 1996, the Kids in the Hall released their first and only major motion picture, Kids in the Hall, Brain Candy. And its consensus was absolutely mixed. Even Siskel and Ebert couldn't agree on its quality. Well, today, I'm going to set the record straight by explaining why I love this amazing, crazy film. This is Kids in the Hall, Brain Candy.
Sea captains sailing on life's rough seas. Come on, you Magellans, come with me. I've got pie, happiness pie.
Scientist Chris Cooper, played by Kevin McDonald, has invented an antidepressant drug named Gleamanex, which attaches itself to the user's happiest memory and amplifies it in order to cheer them up. Cooper shows it to Mark Ruator, played by Mark McKinney, head of the pharmacy Cooper and his friends work for, and he sets it up for production. While it becomes an overnight sensation, Cooper quickly finds out that the drug causes people to be in a coma-like state with their happy memories playing on repeat forever. So Chris and his friends have to work to figure out how to counter the drug's effects. This is definitely a love it or hate it type film, as your feelings on Kids in the Hall will very much reflect what you think about the movie. Let's start with the comedy. The comedy in this film is very reminiscent of the comedy in the Kids in the Hall TV show. It's very absurd, ridiculous, and non-PC. In fact, the film actually received a lot of controversy for the character of Cancer Boy, which honestly felt unearned as he really wasn't in the film that much. It has a very bizarre charm to it that might work for some people, but not others. I especially love the worms to ex-girlfriend scene, the various happy memories gags, and the scene of Wally the therapist. Those scenes are especially very funny. I also love the song numbers I'm Gay and Happiness Pie. They're both incredibly funny musical numbers that function into the subplots nicely. See, while there are multiple subplots in the film, there are two that have the most focus and relevance. The I'm Gay one is about Wally Terzinski, played by Scott Thompson, a closeted gay man who's the only one who doesn't know that he's gay. And the Happiness Pie one is about Grievo, played by Bruce McCulloch, a rock star who's very pessimistic and bleak, but after taking Gleamanex becomes more happy and makes the song Happiness Pie. Both of these subplots result in entertaining moments and fit into the story effectively. Speaking of which, let's move on to the main characters. Chris Cooper is a pretty solid protagonist. Kevin McDonald really manages to instill the character with his awkward and nerdy charm, and he makes an enjoyable straight man to the insanity going on around him. The way he bounces off all these absurd characters and interacts with his fellow friends is both really genuine and really fun, adding to the charm of the film and making Cooper feel like a genuinely good character. And I especially like the little romance he has with fellow scientist Alice, played by Bruce McCulloch. It's treated with the perfect amount of silliness and seriousness, making it feel both genuine and fitting with the craziness of Brain Candy. I also like the arc that Chris goes throughout the film. Seeing Cooper start out with noble intentions, desiring to make a drug that counteracts the effects of depression, but then getting swept up in the fame and limelight is genuinely interesting and engaging. It's a very interesting journey that makes Chris feel like a fully fleshed out character. And the way Chris solves everything is very satisfying. Overall, Chris Cooper is a very solid and entertaining character, played very well by Kevin McDonald, that serves as a great anchor point for the film as a whole. Next, there's the film's antagonist, Don Rorator, played amazingly by Mark McKinney. Don is like if the pointy-haired boss from Dilbert was actually intelligent. He's pretty goofy and odd, but he's also a force to be reckoned with, and Mark McKinney perfectly captures both sides of his personality insanely well. Rorator is easily one of the best boss characters in fiction, managing to be both insanely funny, yet fully aware of what's going on, and he makes a great contrast to Cooper. And Marv, Don's assistant, is also hilarious. Dave Foley manages to give the character a lot of charm, and I like that despite seeming like he likes Don, Marv actually can't stand him to the point where his happiest memory is pissing in Don's cup and serving it to him. No, I'm not kidding. Overall, both Marv and Don are genuinely great characters. They're both great on their own and as a duo, and both Dave Foley and Mark McKinney are fantastic as these characters. Great stuff. Alice is also a great character. Now, like I said, she's played by Bruce McCulloch, despite being a woman. This is because since all the members of Kids in the Hall are male, whenever they need a woman, they usually dress up in drag. And if you're against that sort of thing, you won't really like this movie because they do that a lot. But in my opinion, it really works, especially with Alice. Bruce does a really good job making the character sympathetic and likable, and her relationship with Chris goes through some really interesting arcs. She's not an insanely complex character, but is still pretty entertaining and played well by Bruce McCulloch. Neat stuff. Finally, there's all the minor characters. There are a ton of characters in this movie that don't really have that big a role, but they're still awesome. Most of them are characters who've appeared in the Kids in the Hall TV show, like the aforementioned Cancer Boy, Nina Bedford, and the bigoted cab driver, who also narrates the film. Each of these characters gives the movie a splash of personality, and allows Kids in the Hall fans to spot Easter eggs from the show. All in all, pretty fun characters. Finally, let's talk about how Brain Candy functions as a representation of Kids in the Hall. In my opinion, works pretty well. Even though the film was made at a really tumultuous time in the Kids in the Hall's career, it still manages to capture their trademark traits and translate it from the small screen to the big screen. The film has a very manic, bizarre charm to it that really makes Brain Candy stand out and really feel like a Kids in the Hall movie. It's really neat stuff that makes a great movie even better. Overall, Kids in the Hall Brain Candy is a fantastic movie. The comedy is hilarious. The characters are likable and enjoyable, and it manages to perfectly capture the insanity of the Kids in the Hall while still being its own thing. If you're a Kids in the Hall fan and haven't seen this movie already, check it out. But if you don't have any experience with KITH, this movie is not a good introduction. Check out the original 80s sketch show or its Kids in the Hall 2022 reincarnation before giving Brain Candy a watch. Overall, I can totally see why Brain Candy divided so many people, but in my opinion, it's a pretty cool comedy from a pretty cool group. Great job, Kids in the Hall. You guys rule. That's all for now. Join me next time when we talk about a sequel to a film I already reviewed that might be better than the original. Till then, this is Jeremy, and I'll see you next time.